My name is Sid. You're listening to a new episode of Bazaar, a podcast which talks about investments and the business landscape in India. In this episode, I'm going to talk about a small cap company which makes various weapons systems for Indian defense companies. It's called Apollo Microsystems. If you look back in the last 2, 3 months, even last 2, 3 years, we are very far away from global peace with war brewing in several parts of the world. Closer to home, we've seen the recent Indo Pak conflict where India's air defense was tested. And all of that means that India is investing a lot of money on defense with a budget of around 6.8 lakh crore. They're going to increase it further. And there's a greater push for domestic production, right? That has really pumped up Indian defense stocks. And Apollo Microsystems itself has delivered 70% returns in just 1 month. So it's not a cheap stock, but it is slowly transitioning into a tier 1 OEM, and the future looks very bright for the company. It is going to be important to understand the business and see if there is a lot of growth potential and if it can be a multi-bagger even from here. It makes sense to look into the business. Apollo was established in 1985 in Hyderabad, and it's in the business of design and development of weapon systems, which are used in missiles, naval systems, avionics, homeland security, space systems, etc. So, if I had to summarize, it makes the intelligence that goes inside a weapon. And if you look at the business, the number one thing is that the barriers to entry in this industry are quite high because it takes years to build a weapon system. You know, a lot of R&D is required, and the systems have to go through rigorous testing, inspections, and even the government approval takes a long time. It's a long drawn process. Customers are sticky because you can't switch systems easily. So once you've onboarded someone as a customer, they're going to stick with you. And significant capex and working capital is also required for R&D. So money is blocked in inventory, in receivables. You have to invest in facilities. So it's not an easy business, but once you get into it, the barrier to entry is quite high. Apollo, in particular, has participated in 150 plus indigenous defense programs, and it has more than 700 technologies till date. So, you know, let's look at some of the growth drivers of the future that makes me optimistic about the company. Number one is the order book. The current order book stands at 615 CR, and the management expects this to grow to 1,800 CR by the end of FY26. The management is also estimated a revenue growth of 50% year on year for the next 2 years, which is quite impressive. Number two is the manufacturing ramp up. So Apollo has one manufacturing unit currently, and it is in the process of setting two more plants. One will commence operations from mid September 25, and the second will commence operations by the end of FY26. Uh, and that tells you that the management believes that demand is going to grow in the future. That's why it's investing in these facilities. And the company also plans to raise around 816 crore through a preferential issue for R&D, working capital, and capex requirements. So they are significantly ramping up manufacturing. They are raising money to invest in R&D, and all that signals that the business is going to grow. Number three to look for is the acquisition of Ideal Explosives. So Apollo will soon acquire Ideal Explosive, which is a company which makes packaged and bulk explosives. And I think the strategy is simple. Apollo wants to not only just make systems, it wants to build the entire weapon along with the systems, along with the explosives. And I think this acquisition could help Apollo transition to become a tier 1 fully integrated OEM defense player. The company is working on several exciting projects like underwater mines, heavyweight torpedoes, surface to air missiles, which we know a lot about now. From the recent conflict, we've seen a lot of how surface to air missiles work. and they're also working on anti-tank munitions. So there's definitely a lot to look forward to when you talk about the future. But like I always say, there are always some concerns, and it's very important to look at, what are the red flags if there are any. So the first one is that the company has very few systems in full scale production. Many projects are in development phase. It's working on many technologies, but the big money is made when a system goes in production. Now, this is something that investors should track, because if development projects do not go into production, Apollo will find it hard to scale and to grow the business. It's going to have to spend a lot of money in building systems, developing systems, but then if it doesn't go into production, you don't make a lot of money. So that's something to watch out for. Second is that Apollo has a very long working capital cycle, which is typical for a defense player, because R&D takes long, projects can get stalled, and getting money from the government is also a long drawn process. It's not easy to get money from the government. So that means high inventory, high receivables. It takes a toll on the working capital. And the third is promoters have pledged 48% of shareholding to invest back into the business. So they have pledged their shareholding, and they have raised money, and they've put it back into the business, which doesn't seem like a good strategy, because in case the stock price goes down, the banks are going to, you know, call for margin calls on those pledged shareholdings, and that could really be catastrophic for the stock price. And the company also has a very low FII DII holding. So institutional holding is very low, which doesn't give a lot of confidence to retail investors. So, while the future looks promising, it's working on many projects, working with, all the high end customers in India. Apollo is still expensive at these levels, and it will be interesting to watch the company grow, watch the order book, how it grows its revenues. Can it meet the targets? 50% year on year increase, it's quite high. And it's also going to be interesting to see how the acquisition of Ideal Explosives works out, because that is going to be key to unlocking future growth if Apollo wants to transition to being a tier 1 OEM in the defense space. So I'm definitely keeping a close watch on the company. In case of a major correction, 10-20% drop, the stock would look a little more attractive. So keep it on your watch list. That's it for today's episode of Bazaar. I've written an extremely detailed article on my blog, which talks in depth about the pros and cons of the company. I'll keep the link in the show notes. Do check it out, and do subscribe to this channel if you like this video, this podcast. Leave a review, share it with your friends, and spread the word. I'm looking forward to your feedback as always.